start out easy. What makes A Safe Man so unique from anything else that you've written? You've written so much.
Yeah, I mean it is a very unique story in my world because it's got a supernatural element to it that I've never pursued since or before this story. I was approached to write a short story that would be in a genre that I was not known for. So I write legal thrillers, detective stories. So I could do sci-fi, I could do romance, I could do horror. But when I'm off duty and like just reading for myself, I gravitate towards horror. So I thought I'd write a ghost story. And I had an incident in my life that at a house I lived in came like we bought this house, we lifted up some carpet and there was a safe underneath the carpet. So and that triggered all kinds of imagination. Like the safe was locked, we had to bring a safe man in to open it, and that was the end of it being any kind of unusual story. But then, in my imagination, I came up with this idea of it being a safe that should have never been opened, and so I kind of ran it from there.
Can you tell us about expanding beyond the short story for something like this?
Yeah, so I wrote that story maybe 15 years ago, and short stories, they kind of disappear. You write them, they put them in a book, and they're gone. I'd forgotten about that story, and one of the producers of this dramatic podcast, or whatever we're calling it, it was my daughter, and she was reading through all my. She's like 26, and she started reading through all my back history of stories, and she came across this and had the idea that it could be something. It could lead. First, she said this could be a good TV show, and we kind of put our heads together and thought kind of a shortcut to hopefully get a TV show would be to first do a podcast, a dramatic. And because I'm involved in some TV shows based on my books, we had access to some really good actors, and then we got Jack, and we were kind of off to the races. So what I had to do is take this short story, which I think was like 15 pages, and write eight chapters or eight scripts for us to record. And it was funny. It just because I was in this world that I'm not used to of writing a ghost story. It became, I don't want to say it was easy, but it went fast. It went fast. I was able to like kind of just ride the wave of what this could mean. And I hope we gave it a little bit of a deeper resonance because it deals with, eventually it gets into these existential questions of what happens to us. Where we come from? Where do we go after life ends? And so I just really wanted to kind of concentrate on that a little bit in the stories, and that helped me expand it as well.
How does it feel for you, like getting to see these stories you've written 15 years ago come to life in a new way?
It's pretty amazing because, like I said, especially with short stories, you kind of forget about them. Most of the time you're asked to do a short story to help raise money for something. Someone's going to put together a collection, sell it, and the money goes to whatever the organization is. And you always want to give back. I'm a very lucky guy to be able to do what I do. So I've written a lot of short stories over my career, and I just totally forget them. I write them, send them in. Hopefully they work. I mean, because I started writing long form, 400-page novels, so it's actually hard for me to write a full story in 20 pages. Very difficult. So I hesitate to do them, but they're usually for a good cause. And I tell you the truth, I don't even know what the cause was for Safe Man because I wrote it so long ago. So it was like something long gone out of my head, and to have this kind of life. Now I'm sitting here in front of all you, and it's really a unique and unusual experience for me.
When you started expanding the scripts, and you knew it would be acted out, did you have certain voices in your head, or were things, could you kind of hear the audio drama in your head as you were writing the script?
A little bit. I mean, it's about. I mean, not the main character, but there's a character who's a writer who lives in this house,
Yeah.
and that was really the framework that I started with because it was based on a real house I lived in, and I was a writer, and so I had the voice of Robinette, the author, and I make a show for Amazon called Bosch, and Titus Welver's Bosch, and so I just immediately thought, first of all, I knew I could get him. I could ask him a question, and because I could ask him to do it, and to be honest, I knew he'd do it because he has a TV show because of me. So I knew he kind of owed me. So I started there, and I knew Titus is very connected with lots of people, and he knew Jack. And I knew through him I could get to other people. Way off of your question, but yeah, initially the voice of Robinette, the author in this thing, was really my voice, but then I supplanted it with Titus.
Can I ask a question about the song at the end? I thought that was so meaningful, the whole theme of like fate and destiny in your book. Did you have a say in that, or did you?
Did I what?
And did you have a say in that?
Oh yeah,
choice?
yeah. No, I mean I scripted that, and and it's, when you write books and you put in music, it doesn't mean anything. But when you do something that's either a TV show or an audible, you have to get right. So I put in Que Sera Sera, and then that became the biggest obstacle, the whole thing, getting the rights to that and finding out who had the rights, and then negotiating the payment for the rights. And at one point we said, "Is this worth it?" And I said, "Yeah, it's worth it. It kind of gets to the nut of the whole story. What will be will be." At some point when Brian and Robinette go out to Casadega, the spiritualist community, that's what they're told. You're not going to be able to change fate. And that gets into one of those, hopefully, deeper resonance of the story that I was going for. Another connection, I'm just rambling here, but Casadega is a real place. And about almost 40 years ago, my first job as a newspaper reporter right out of college, I covered Casadega. So again, I was going back to my roots to write this story. And it's a really weird place, all these row houses with spiritualists all sitting on their front porches waiting for people to come in and get a reading and that kind of stuff. It's a strange place.